Welcome. You've reached the Peak Perspectives, with your hosts AP and VC. Get to know Denver and the surrounding area through the people who make it special. We sit down for engaging interviews and discussions with individuals who have unique connections to the Mile High City and beyond.
Hey, welcome to Peak Perspectives Colorado. I'm Victor Cooper, your co-host, along with our host, Alvin Powell. We want to welcome you, along with our special guest today, Mr. Barry Overton. AP, take it away.
Barry, good to see you again. We've known each other just about 10 years, I guess, now.
Yeah.
What we like to do with this podcast is we bring people on that people in the Denver metro area, Colorado, know of. Heard the names. They know a little bit about you. But we want to dig a little bit deeper and let them get to know more about you, what motivates you, where you came from. So what I would like to do is let's go back to Austin, Texas, and just tell us a little bit about your childhood back in Austin, because as you know, our past dictates our future to a great degree. So if you want to go ahead and give us a little bit of information on how you grew up, what it was like back there then.
Yeah, born and raised in Austin, Texas, still consider it to be home, but have not lived there in 30 plus years, close to 40 years now. And but again, I can tell you, didn't grow up with having a lot of things, but I cherish my childhood, and it's just like you said, our past really kind of predicts our future from an aspect of the challenges, the struggles that I experienced and witnessed my mom experience. Really kind of were nurturing pieces to me growing as an adult. I can tell you at 7 years old in second grade, I was in 3 different elementary schools that year just for second grade because we had this period of homelessness. And it was not homelessness of being on the streets. We were fortunate and blessed that we had family members, aunts, great aunts to me, my mom's aunts, that were able to take us in until we were able to get our own place through Section 8 housing. And it's always been one of those when living in the moment. I was 7 years old. I really didn't know what was happening. But looking back on it as an adult and experiencing it, it was one of those things for me of realizing, number one, the strength of my mom to kind of keep us going and have things feel as normal as possible for me. But it was also one of those things that I learned why now I'm able to pivot when things happen, whether it's in the real estate world, when I was a police officer, when things happen and I have to make an adjustment, I can do it very quickly. And I take it back to that time in life of we had to pivot, we had to pick up and move on 3 different occasions until we were kind of settled for a period of time.
Talking about how you grew up, you, I understand, wanted to be a superhero, the Cape Crusader, so to speak. Was it your grandmother's? No, it was your suggestion. You wanted to be Superman. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So it is how our dreams begin at an early age, the past and how the present of those dreams do weave their way into our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think for me, that was my escape from reality of the Superman aspect of it, because and I look back at it now, it was me dreaming, and I think I always say the greatest dreamers on the planet are children, because they dream without doubt or fear or and they dream with conviction. They dream that this is going to happen. And it's as we get older that we start to get away from our dreams. But for me as a kid, again, growing up in Section 8 housing, being on food stamps, having this period of homelessness, this was that aspect for me as a very young child of, I wanted to be something on a whole nother level. I wanted to be Superman, and I would run through the neighborhood with the terry cloth towel and the big safety pin holding it on. And yeah, my grandmother was like, "Boy, you got to stop doing that. You're getting too old. People gonna think something's wrong with you. Running through the neighborhood with like that." And I always talk about that as beware of the dream stealer. And sometimes the dream stealer is someone that's close to you, and they're not doing it maliciously. They feel like they're just like she did. She felt like, people are gonna think, he's slow or something's wrong with him running through the neighborhood like this. I need to tell him to stop that. And that's the thing with dream stealing is as we get older, there are more and more people that care about us that feel like they're doing a favor to us by telling us these things that will steal our dreams from us.
Right. And I also know that once you got past the Superman dream, things kind of changed a little bit. And at one point, you wanted to be in the NFL.
Yeah, yeah. And it was almost right after that. It went into because right at 7, 8 years old, once we got secured in a home, and I was at the same school and had the same friends for years after that. It was third grade. I got introduced to football, and I remember it vividly being in Austin, Texas. The Texas Longhorns were there. Earl Campbell was a senior at the University of Texas. Tony Dorsett was a rookie with the Dallas Cowboys, and those were my two teams. And I just happened to pick two teams that the Longhorns went to the national championship that year. Earl Campbell won the Heisman Trophy. Tony Dorsett went to the Super Bowl that year and won the Super Bowl. And so I was hooked at that point. And that's the life that I wanted to have for myself. And so it was once again the dream of it. And I remember there were times where I would play football in a big field by myself. I am throwing passes to myself, which is a talent in itself. But I can tell you, and I did that for a few years. I played Pop Warner football and had, really good success with that. And again, that was the dream probably for 10 years up until the time that I was 17 years old. And that's kind of where, I talked about, you got to beware of the dream stealers, those outside influences that may take you away from your dream. But the biggest one that you got to be aware of is your own mind and your own, belief. And in my book, Ignite Your Greatness, I talk about there's two types of pain in life, the pain of purpose and the pain of regret. And in that pain of purpose, you're going to hurt. You're going to hurt physically. You're going to hurt emotionally. You're going to hurt psychologically. You're going to go through struggles that you got to be able to push through because this is your purpose. This is your calling. But the one area that the only place I feel like you can fail in life is if you quit. And when you quit, there's another pain that sets in, and that's that regret aspect. And I can tell you, I gave up my football dream and thoughts and hopes of that at 17 because I felt like I was physically, I was getting injured. I was dealing with things of that nature. And I said, I don't want to do this anymore. But I can tell you from 17 to probably 37, 38, right in that area, I had this pain of regret. And it was always, what if? What if I would have stayed with it? Would I have made it to the NFL? Would I have went to college and had a good college career? And it was that was a tough pill to swallow because, like I said, it stayed with me for 20 years.
Yeah.
You were talking about pushing through.
Mhm.
you not only served in the military, you were in the Gulf War as a vet. You're a former law enforcement officer.
Yeah.
You're an author.
Yeah.
You're a speaker. How did all those experiences allow you to build your strength of pushing through, continuing on until you got to the end or to the other side?
And I think it is the experiences starting at, again, that 7-year-old mark of experiencing homelessness. And then at 17, quitting on the dream and then having these 20 years of regret around it. All of those are part of the life lessons that came along with it. And so a big reason why, again, another aspect is I've owned multiple businesses. I had a coffee distribution business that's where Al and I met. I owned a catering company. I owned a home security company, all while being a Denver police officer. So these different areas, and then being in real estate for 24 years. And that was once again continuing to dream. So in my adulthood, I didn't stop dreaming. And one of the things that I learned is I don't like this feeling of regret of giving up on that NFL dream. I'm never going to quit on something without giving it my all first. So that was that big lesson that I learned at 17 that I used forward in life and using it to push through and realizing, okay, there's the pain of purpose and there's this struggle and these challenges, but it is not as deadly to the spirit as that pain of regret, because man, I could not shake that thing. And I said, I don't ever want to go through that again. So that's why, now, even at 57 years old, I'm still dreaming about what's next. And it's easy to do that and easy to push through these small challenges. Now that I look at them as small challenges that come up, as opposed to knowing what's on the other side if I quit and how I'm going to feel.
So now I understand you got into working with your book. What led you to writing a book? It's something that I think a lot of us have thought about. I know I've thought about it, but what was it that really motivated you to write this book, Ignite Your Greatness?
It was one of the biggest things when I hit 40 years old. This is my very first experience with personal development. I read Think and Grow Rich. My sister introduced me to it. I've read that book 6 times or listened to it, 6 times since 40. So 17 years I've listened to it or read it 6 times. And it was the transitional moment for me in regards to, knowing about I got a purpose. I have a bigger purpose than working this job. And then it became very important from a standpoint of, I truly just feel like, again, Bob Proctor says the way we talk to God is through prayer. The way God talks to us is through our intuition. That's that thing inside that gives us ideas and it touches our spirit. And so I listen to those whispers that I hear inside. And a part of that has always been, when I look back on my career of serving in the military, serving as a police officer, serving my client base, when I was leading sales reps in the coffee distribution business, I was serving them. So I know that that's an integral part of who I am, is service to others. And so I always say my purpose, when people ask me, what's your purpose? It's 2 things. It's to serve others and it's to impact them while serving them. And so going back now to your question on the book, it was one of those things of, okay, I got all of this stuff inside of me that I don't want to leave this world without putting this into a book. I don't know who it's going to impact after but I know that it will because, and I take it back to Think and Grow Rich. I was introduced to Think and Grow Rich at 40 years old, 38 years after Napoleon Hill had passed away. And it's still, it's the book that has the biggest impact on my life. So I told myself, I want to be that person, even if it's one person 50 years or 100 years from now. But if I don't write this book and I take all of this to the grave, I am not serving. I'm not living in my purpose. And I finished the book in the summer of 2020. I went through the editing and proofing and all that from the summer, and then we released it in November of 2020. My driving force to get this completed, because I started the book the summer of 2019. And I thought it was going to be like a 6-month project. Well, no, it was over a year to get it done. But I can tell you, things went into hyper mode January 26th of 2020. That's when Kobe Bryant died in that helicopter crash.
Mhm.
And I told myself that that was a message to me of you think you have all the time in the world, and that's, the Dalai, or excuse me, the Buddha says our biggest mistake is that we think we have time. And the funny thing about that is Kobe Bryant is known for using that same quote. And it was that message to me of stop playing around with this and get this done. So it was a driving component to move faster on getting it done. And it was funny. I'm going to go back to Kobe just for a second. I was in the last chapter of that book, figuring out how do I close this book out, and I had no idea. And January 26th happened. January 27th came, and I started writing that last chapter with just a lot of energy because what I realized it was about legacy. It was about, the whole book is about igniting the greatness within and living in your purpose while you're here. But it's
Right.
ultimately for the legacy that outlives you. And that's what we see with Kobe Bryant. I see more. We saw Kobe Bryant on the basketball court when he was here, but I see more motivational stuff that Kobe Bryant did before his passing now than I ever saw when he was alive. And we will, Kobe's legacy will live well beyond him. It'll live beyond our lifetimes. And that's something that I said, okay, I got to get this finished because if I don't get it finished, I don't have a legacy to leave behind.
Pain
You
and
know,
regret.
talking about people who have influenced you. You're talking
Mhm.
about Kobe Bryant. Share us some stories about your uncle. Wasn't he a very influential individual in your life?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Again, it goes back to kind of, the Superman idea. And it's just funny how, how life kind of puts all the pieces to the puzzle there and you got to put it together. And, again, at that 4, 5, 6 years old, having the Superman, idea and dream, and then going through from to the football phase. And at 17, I'm getting ready to graduate from high school and I'm trying to decide what am I going to do? And then I started looking at people that were successful that were real people. And the most successful person in my family was my uncle. He was the first African American sergeant, lieutenant, and captain for the Austin Police Department. I mean, they wrote articles about him. So, and I got to, he was my mother's brother. So he was someone that was, right there, tangible, hands on. I could talk to
Right.
him. And I said, you know what? If I walk in his footsteps, if I copy what he's done, I'm not going to be in a bad situation at all. And so at 17, I decided, okay, I can't be a police officer till I'm 21. I'm going to go into the military when I graduate at 18. I'm going to spend 3 years there at 18. 21, I'll get out. I get on a police department. And I did exactly that. I went to school. I went to college while I was in the military. I got out in at 21, got on with a small department in Alabama. And and to this, he's still alive. I think he just turned 85. And to this day, no, I think he's actually 86. To this day, I tell him, I'm glad you wasn't a trash man. Now, nothing to knock a trash man, but that's probably what I would have done, because if he was successful at it, I would have done probably whatever he was doing.
Right.
But the funny part is he was a real estate investor. He had real estate property. He wasn't an agent, but my first step into real estate was as an investor. I had real estate property as well. I'm telling you, I took the model that worked and I just copied it. They say it's okay to be a copycat as long as you copy the right cat. So he was the right cat.
Right.
Now, I know that another one of your influences is a gentleman that I've had the opportunity to meet several times, Mr. Les Brown.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, so how did you happen to meet Les, and what has he meant to you?
That goes back to, once again, dreaming. So when the reason the book happened is my wife had met a lady that, Amy Collette is her name, that helped people to take the ideas here and turn them into a book. And that was the thing that I needed. I needed someone, a coach, in essence, to help me through that process. And I remember this vividly. We were sitting in the office and we're kind of brainstorming the book and going through the ideas. And I told her, oh, by the way, I want Les Brown to do the foreword on this book. He said, oh, great. I didn't know you knew Les Brown. I said, I don't. I don't have a phone number. I have no connection to him, but I want him to do this book. And by the time we get this done, I'll have figured that out, And she looked at me and she's like, oh, okay. And she didn't believe that it was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen. I didn't know how, but I knew it was going to make it happen. And so once again, 2019, we start this process. 2020 comes along, pandemic hits. I'm following Les Brown and everything that he's doing on social media. I remember it being May of 2020. We're right into the trenches of the pandemic at that time. And Les Brown can't go on speaking engagements. Les Brown can't be in person. And he decided that, okay, I'm going to teach young speakers how to speak, how to take their speaking to the next level. And he offered this course, his online course, for $1,000. I thought, man, this is a steal. I'm all over this. And I jumped into the course in May. It was only supposed to be for 3 months. At the end of that 3 months, he allowed us to stay as long as we wanted. So I was in the training for about 18 months. Every week I was on a training with him. I actually had, in July, I had my nephew who is in the front part of the book. He was killed, and I got a chance to put a speech together that I presented on one of the trainings. And it got his attention from that standpoint. And then about 2 months later, we were doing a contest for all these speakers that were part of this. And I was one of the top 20 speakers in the world. He had like 400 speakers that were on this. And I was one of them that was chosen to do a 30-minute speech on his platform. And after that, I ended up emceeing a couple of his, events. And then eventually I just got to a point, now I didn't have him do the foreword. I had someone else that was very close to me and knew me, and that I have a great deal of respect for, Rod Smith, two-time Super Bowl champion with the Denver Broncos, do the foreword. But I got something better yet from Mr. Brown. What I got from him was he interviewed me on his platform when the book launched. And then when I did a podcast, he was the first one that I interviewed for my podcast. So it was, you know, some of the, you know, like you have a Zoom and you have the actual podcast and the different events that we attended going on, but there was this behind the scenes stuff where we weren't live and we're just having conversations. Man, I'm gonna tell you, those are the most cherished moments of my whole life in regards to, you know, my father, while he was there, he wasn't, you know, really there. He wasn't there when I was growing up. So I can tell you, I've always been influenced by older men from, you know, that father figure mindset. And Les Brown was definitely one of those. Um, yeah, now I took, you know, everything that he shared with me as the gospel and applied it, you know. So it was truly a cherished moment. And it was again just one of those things of stepping out, you know, already putting the vision out there, putting the dream out there, not knowing how it's going to come into play. And in the moment I saw Les Brown is putting on his training, it's like, there it is, there's the how right there, you know.
Speaking of how, Barry, a very successful real estate agent. And I guess with that tied in, you've created a program called the Overton Hero Program.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, you know, being a Gulf War veteran and spending 26 years in law enforcement, and then, you know, going through the pandemic, I already had this program before that. But it was always, you know, military and law enforcement and first responders have always, obviously, especially my heart. And that's, you know, a great connection that I have in those communities. And so when I was a police officer, you know, I can tell you cops like discounts and they like free stuff.
Who doesn't?
So what I did is, you know, I looked at it as when I started in 2001, I was still working on the job. And it's like, you know what? I don't need to make this whole commission. I can give, you know, a certain percentage of it back for the officers to use towards their closing costs or discount them, put more money in their pockets if I'm discounting them on the sale of their home. And that worked out well. And that was a big part of my business. Most of my business was law enforcement. When I left the job in 2013, and then I went full time with real estate in 2017, there were other companies that were doing a hero program. And I was like, you know what? I've been doing this since 2001. So I just put a name to it. I just called it the Overton Hero Program. I just posted this past week that I think we've done over 500,000. I think we're at like $512,000 that we've given back to heroes since I've started keeping track of the numbers in 2017. So, you know, about almost 8 years and, you know, over 500,000 that we've given back to heroes.
How does the program work, Barry?
So it's for first responders. So that's, you know, fire, police, sheriff, EMS, even 911 call takers. So first responders, teachers, medical professionals, and military. If you are looking to purchase or if you're looking to sell a home, we give you either a 20% discount on the sale of your home, where we're giving back part of our commission to that seller, or we're giving you a 20% rebate of our commission. So for instance, if I have, let's say it's a $15,000 commission, you're going to get $3,000 that you can use towards closing costs. And since then, what I've done is I've expanded the program where I work with lenders that are also offering some type of lender credit or rebate of some fashion. So then you take, say, my $3,000, and let's say the lender is matching that with $3,000. That buyer now has $6,000 before they ever find the property that they know is going to help cover closing costs. And in this market, you know, we're asking the seller for additional funds as well. So, you know, I've had many cases where my buyer, let's say they put earnest money down to buy their property.
Right.
They put $4,000 earnest money down. When we go to close on their property, they're getting a $3,500 check back because we've put so much money into it that we didn't even have to use their earnest money towards purchasing the property. So it's been a great program, and once again, it's that sense of serving other people and being able to give back.
Hey, you mentioned a little while ago another mutual friend of ours, Mr. Rod Smith, and we were in the coffee distribution business with him, and he was a mentor to both of us.
Mhm.
How has he, outside of that distribution business, how has he influenced you?
I would say Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, that biggest shift for me in mindset. And then it was about roughly 4 to 5 years later, Rod Smith comes into the picture, and it was the biggest shift in my actual physical life, the life that I'm living, because again, I'd been in real estate and a real estate agent and a police officer for 12 years before I left the job and said, I'm going all in on me. I'm betting on me. And I always looked at, okay, I'm doing all these businesses and jobs, but I got this safety net of having a full-time job as a police officer. So if anything happens with these jobs, I'm still good. I still got income that's coming in. Well, it was in that moment, again, because you partner with Rod Smith. You're not just partnering with the coffee distributor. You're partnering with a guy with 3 business degrees. You're partnering with a guy that has this level of belief in himself, that so much to the point that you adopt his belief, to where, again, your own belief starts to grow. And that was the aspect that I was missing in any mentor. I didn't have that as any type of mentor in real estate, but I had that with him. And then being able to step into that and realize in 11 months of being in that coffee distribution business, I was able to walk away from a 6-figure income with confidence and never look back, from that standpoint. Where it was 12 years of being a real estate agent, and I never even fathomed doing that. But again, it was, they say iron sharp. Well, scripture tells you iron sharpens iron. And that was where I needed to be sharpened, where I wasn't getting that in the past. So that was a huge pivotal moment for me in my career. I often think, man, if I hadn't met him, hadn't aligned myself with him, where would I be? And once again, I didn't have to have that regret, because again, that lesson of regret has always stuck with me. And that was the thing when I was looking at the opportunity, because I don't know if you know this story, Al, but truth be told, when I met Rod, I was trying to recruit him to a company that I was with. I always say he played me, because what he did is he's like, okay, yeah, I'll look at your thing that you're doing, but I want you to look at what I'm doing as well. And then he just kept showing me the different things that they were doing on the coffee side. But it wasn't about the coffee business. It was about the personal development aspect. It was about who he was aligned with Holton Bugs. And it was about the growth that, not just from a business standpoint, but from a personal standpoint. And that's what brought me in to a point of like, okay, this is where I need to be at, and it was an easy decision to make, aligning with him, but it was one that a lot of people missed out on, that opportunity of making that same decision. So when I say it's easy, I realized that, okay, I could have been one of those ones that said no to the opportunity with him. And where would I be at right now? I don't think I would be in the place that I am right now. So it was truly a transformational decision, when I aligned with him.
All right, well, before we go,
Mhm.
I know that you know, they say behind every good man is a good woman. So,
Yeah.
and I know you, you know, you talked a little bit about your kids. I know you're real proud of your kids. Um, would you mind telling us a little bit about the support that you get, you know, from your wife, from your kids? Um, what you what you see in your kids? Because I know they're coming along. They're grown now, pretty much. So,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
tell us a little bit about your family, if you don't mind.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I actually, I'm going to just start with my mom real quick because my mom is still alive as well. She's 88. And she, you know, again, going through that period at 7 years old and looking back at it as an adult, what I saw was resilience. What I saw was someone that doesn't quit. I remember when she was 79 years old and she was, you know, she was having some challenges in her life, health wise, just kind of living situation and the people that she was around. And I remember this once again, just another vivid memory of her 79, getting ready to turn 80. And she said, I can't be around these people. See, they don't have a future. I have a future. You know,
Mm.
and those words stuck with me when an almost 80-year-old woman is saying, I have a future. She's still dreaming. And still to this day, she's in that place. Les Brown was the same way, you know, and it was one of those things of just a reminder to never stop dreaming. Now, kind of pivoting to my wife, um, prior to meeting her, me and God used to have a whole lot of conversations. And there was a few things I told him. I told him that I need, you know, again, in Genesis, book of the Bible, it tells us that God gifts us 120 years of life. But most people don't live 120 years. But he also, you know, when Adam and Eve went to the garden, he gave us this thing called free will and saying, okay, you know, I'm gonna let you guys make your own decisions, but you're gonna have to suffer the consequences of those decisions. And a lot of the reasons that we don't live to the 120 that he gives us is because of the decisions that we make, you know, and a lot of it may even just be with food. And so for me, I looked at it as, okay, I work out all the time. I do all the things from a physical standpoint, but I don't eat the best. You know, I don't drink, I don't smoke, but I don't eat the best. And I said, you know, and that was one of those conversations. I was like, Lord, help me with this. And how one of the many ways that he helped me by bringing my wife in is she's vegan and she's gluten free. Now, she will tell you, I am a work in progress and I have talent, but I do eat better now than I did before I first met her. And that, you know, again, she was God sent from that standpoint. She's God sent from, she has her own business and she is just booming with her business right now. She's a sales coach and she does speaking engagements all across the country, trainings with you know, like Fortune 100 companies all across the country, highly successful. And aligning with someone like that in your personal life, again, it keeps me, you know, continuing to work and continue to strive. And we bounce ideas off of one another. We just think very much alike. So all of those were part of the gift that God gave me by bringing her, you know, into my life. And then those other two gifts, you know, my children. I always tell, you know, people. I'm an author. I'm a three-time best-selling author through Amazon, but I'm not the first author in my family. My daughter was. My daughter wrote and self-published her first book at 13 years old. And I, when she wrote that book, I had aspirations of being an author, but still it was kind of on the back burner for me. But when she did that, and she did a few other books after that, you know, at 14 and 15, it just reminded me, okay, you can't leave this world without, you know, writing a book, without putting your message out there to the world. And so she's been an inspiration, you know, from that standpoint. And now she's in the process. She's actually looking for a literary agent for her most recent project that she's done. And then my son, again, truly a gift because my ex-wife and I that had my two kids, she had MS. She was diagnosed with MS. My ex-wife was diagnosed with MS after my daughter was born, before my son was born. And they basically told her that, yeah, you probably won't be able to have any more kids. And if you do, there's a good chance that, there's going to be some issues with the child.
Right.
And so that 2 years passed, and uh, we didn't think that she could get pregnant, and she got pregnant. And then along that process, now we're worried about what his health going to be like. And we had the test done that we could, where they were able to test. Prior to him being born, everything seemed fine. He was born, everything was fine, and he's 22 years old now. He has a semester up at CU Boulder to finish. He's actually just got a job with Coors Brewing Company, so he works out in Golden, and just having doing great in life. My whole thing obviously with my kids is dream. So for whatever reason, his dream, he wants to fight MMA. So he's been doing some MMA training. He loves it. He's done some sparring around that. I'm not the biggest fan of him wanting to do that, but I'm a fan of him, and I'm going
Right.
to support him in that process of wanting to do that to whatever level he decides to take it. But yeah, I couldn't be more fortunate with, the people that I have around me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Barry, we sure appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on and joining us this week.
It's a pleasure.
And all I can say is just keep dreaming, brother.
Won't stop. I
You're a
won't
young
stop.
man. And, like you say, you're blessed. Families with your family, with your businesses, with everything. So just keep up the good work,
Thank you.
and we'll see you around.
All right. Thanks so much. It's a great pleasure to be on.
Take care.
Thank you, Barry.